Welcome, friends. We are about to start in 30 seconds. Today's resolution is Muhammad performed miracles. Nadir Ahmed is going to be taking the affirmative position, and Reverend Samuel Green will be taking the negative position. Nadir asked for the negative position to go first, and Samuel agreed to that, so we're going to pass it off to Samuel to start us off with his 20-minute opening statement. Samuel, take it away.
Okay. It's great to be with everyone as we look at this topic, this question of did Muhammad do miracles? And I want to start off with some overview questions first of all, overview observations. And first of all, the first one is to understand the Quran and how it works, an aspect of the Quran. In the Quran, you'll see that people ask Muhammad questions, and very often the Quran will give him answers to say. Now, one of the areas that is addressed very often in the Quran, in fact, there are 12 direct verses on this, is why Muhammad does no miracles. And so this was obviously a big issue that people were raising with Muhammad. Why does he do no miracles? And the Quran gives 12 verses responding to this, and we'll look at those in a minute. Now, why is the question of Muhammad doing miracles important? Well, because miracles are a sign of God's confirmation. It's where God interacts and interjects into his creation and confirms his prophet, his messenger. And so that's why it's an issue, because miracles are one of the ways that God confirms that someone is a genuine prophet. Now, in this, I'm not going to be looking at the Quran itself as a miracle. We'll see a little bit about that. I'm not looking at saying, oh, the Quran is miraculous. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Muhammad doing miracles like Jesus and Moses, that type of thing. We're not looking at what the Quran is as a miracle or not. So I'm going to read through now 12 verses from the Quran, and I'm looking at them in chronological order, and we're just going to see what they say. They say, if only he would bring us a miracle from his Lord. Has there not come unto them the proof of what is in the former scriptures? So there you see, people are asking Muhammad, why doesn't he do a sign? And the response is, look at the former scriptures. And nothing has prevented us from sending signs except that the former peoples denied them. And so we see here that, God could give signs, but the people in the past denied them, and so he's not giving the signs now. Where are we? Come over here. Or you, Muhammad, this is people are asking Muhammad to do this, to have a house of gold, or to have you ascend into the sky, and even then they will not believe in your ascension until you bring down for us a book that we may read. Say, exalted is my Lord. Was I ever but a human being, a human messenger? So people are asking Muhammad for gold from heaven, or a house, or a book to come down, and the response is, well, I'm just a human being, And they say, why is a sign not sent down to him from his Lord? So say, the unseen is only for Allah to administer, so wait. Indeed, I am with you among those who wait. So again, the question, why does Muhammad do no miracles? And the answer is, well, I'm waiting with you. They say, why has there not been sent down to him a treasure, or come with him an angel? And then the response is, but you are only a warner. Okay, you are only a warner. They swear in their strongest oaths by God that if a sign came to them, by it they would believe. Say, certainly signs are in the power of God, but what would make you Muslims realize that even if signs came, they would not believe? So again, Muhammad's not doing signs, but even if he did, they wouldn't believe. They say, why has no sign from his Lord been sent down to him? Say, God is able to send down a sign, but most of them do not know. So again, the question, why does Muhammad do no sign? And the answer is, well, God's able to. But they say the revelation is but a mixture of false dreams. Rather, he has invented it. He is a poet. So let him bring us a sign, just as the previous messengers had miracles. right? So, there's no response in this case, but it's just bring it up again. But they say, why are signs not sent down to him from his Lord? Say, the signs are only with Allah, and I am only a clear warner. It is sufficient for them that we have sent down to you the scripture to be recited. So Muhammad doesn't give any signs, and it's sufficient that they have the Quran in this place. Those who do not know say, why does Allah not speak to us, or there come a sign? Thus spoke those before them like their words. Their hearts resemble each other. We have shown clearly the signs to a people who are certain in faith. And so, why doesn't he give a sign? And we're going to look at a bit later on as to, what are these signs that Allah himself sends? And those who disbelieve say, why has a sign not been sent down to him from his Lord? You are only a warner, and for every people is a guide. So again, why does Muhammad do no signs? Because he's just a warner. And those who disbelieve say, why has a sign not been sent down to him from his Lord? Say, indeed, Allah leads astray whom he wills, and he guides to himself whoever he turns back to him. So again, why does Muhammad do no signs? The answer in this case is, well, Allah leads and he guides who he wishes. So just a bit of a summary there. Muhammad does, when people say, why does Muhammad do no miracles? The answer that is given is, read the former scriptures. That's what you need to do. Signs were rejected by the former peoples. Muhammad is waiting for a sign too. They will not believe even if they see a sign. God is able to give a sign. The Quran is Muhammad's sign. God leads and hardens whom he wills. But the answer that's given 4 times is Muhammad is just a warner. So if we look at the Quran, it is very clear that Muhammad is just a warner, and there are no verses saying that he did miracles. In fact, it'd be odd if there was, in view of what we've just read. And so I'll give a couple of quotes of Muslims who say this. Oh, sorry, one Muslim. So this is from an introduction to Pickthall's translation of the Quran. To myriads the world over, the Quran represents the word of God as revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. It is the only miracle he claimed. It was mentioned earlier that the only miracle the Prophet claimed was the Quran. So that's a Muslim at the writing an introduction to the start of a Muslim's translation of the Quran. And then I've got, for more of a modern academic approach, Neil Robinson's book on the Quran. And what does he write? The only miracle which was vouchsafed to him was the Quran itself, which the unbelievers were challenged to imitate. So the view that I'm saying there is one that you'll find in the academic literature and amongst Muslims. And if you just read the Quran, that is the impression you come away with. Now, some Muslims will claim that there are, in fact, verses in the Quran that say Muhammad did do miracles. So I want to look at these. And in my discussions with Muslims over the last few years, they've brought these up. Now, the first one is the signs of creation. And we sort of touched on this a bit before. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and of the alternation of the night and the day are signs for those of understanding. And I've spoken with Muslims before, and they've referred to these and said, see, these are the signs that the Quran says Muhammad did. But when you look at these are talking about the signs that God gives in creation, in this case, the night, the day. You can't attribute those to Muhammad. And as I said, I've had Muslims do that. The next one that I've had is that they say, no, Muhammad did do miracles because they call, the unbelievers call him a magician, and magicians do magic tricks. Okay, magicians do magic tricks. Muhammad's called a magician, and so that means he was doing things that people said were just magic tricks. However, when you read the verses, they're not saying that. So let's look at a couple. And when they see a sign, turn it to mockery and say, this is nothing but evident sorcery. What? When we die and become dust and bones, shall we then be raised up again together with our forefathers, the ancients? Now you see the word sign there, and people say, well, it's talking about a magic sign that they're saying Muhammad did. No, because the word for a verse in the Quran is a sign. And that's what it's talking about here, because if you read the last part of the verse, it refers to the message that Muhammad's been speaking about, which is the resurrection. So they say, that they see this sign, they have this sign from Muhammad, and then what is the sign? That we're going to die and be raised again. And they're saying, no, we don't accept this. So they're referring to his message, and we see this clearly elsewhere. And when our verses, remember that word is sign again, are recited to them as clear evidences, those who disbelieve say of the truth when it has come to them, this is obvious magic. So you see, when they call Muhammad a magician, it's because of what he's reciting, not because of any magic that he's doing. And again, and he said, this is merely retold magic. So Muhammad's being called a magician because of what he recites, and they're saying that the way he recites the Quran is just what magicians do. And it's interesting that at the start of several surahs, there are the magical letters, Aleph, Lam, Mim, just letters which nobody knows the meaning of. And that's sort of what magicians do, alakabam, shish kebab, whatever it might be. They have their magic words, and they're saying Muhammad has just got these magic words. Now, others have said to me, well, the Bible says the same thing about Jesus, in that, the Quran is saying that to these people, they're saying, why don't you do a miracle? And then I've had some Muslims say to me, well, that's what the Bible says about Jesus. And so they'll say it from a verse like this. Jesus sighed deeply and said, why does this generation ask for a sign? Truly, I tell you, no sign will be given to it. And so I've had Muslims say, look, there you go. That's saying the same thing that the Quran says, but yet Jesus did miracles. Well, no, it's not the same thing. First of all, in Mark chapter 8, Jesus has just done a great miracle. So he's just done a miracle, and then people are saying, give us another one. And he's saying, well, no, I'm not going to do that. So it's a very different situation. Jesus has just done a sign. Secondly, no one ever said that Jesus did no signs. So read the New Testament. Where are the 12 verses in the New Testament where people say of Jesus, why don't you do a sign? Right? Where does the New Testament, where do the gospel writers, where does Jesus' enemies say, give us a sign, do something, because you don't give any. You don't give any signs. Well, we don't have those verses because Jesus gave lots of signs and people had to cope with them. Jesus is never said to be just a warner. So I'll give you a couple of references here. Men of Israel, listen to this. Jesus of Nazareth was a man accredited by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs, which God did among you through him, as you yourselves know. So even the unbelievers, they had to acknowledge it. And so here we have, we even see this with Jesus. We see this with Jesus in John's gospel, but we even see this with his disciples as well. Now, I'll just keep going on. Now, an example that the Muslims often bring is that Muhammad split the moon. And they'll say the Quran does record a miracle of Muhammad, and that is he split the moon. And so here's the verse. The hour has drawn near, the moon has been split, but if they see a sign, they turn away and say, never-ending magic. And so this verse is put up to say, the Quran does have Muhammad doing a miracle. Okay, I've got a few points on that. First of all, the verse in no sense mentions Muhammad's name. There's no mention of Muhammad doing it. So you've got to establish that it's referring to Muhammad. Secondly, it says, if they see a miracle, they'll turn away and say this. Well, it's the word if. If they see it, they'll do this. Okay, that's consistent with what we've seen before, that if they see a sign, they still won't believe. So it's not saying it happened. Muslims will say, it's in the past tense. And Arabic doesn't have the past in the same way that we do in English. It has the completed sense, the perfect. But we need to note, as Fidel Soliman in his translation of the Quran points out, many such Muslims are unaware, for example, that God spoke in the Quran about the hereafter in the past tense around 500 times. So just being spoken about as the moon splitting in the past tense, it doesn't mean it's something that happened, right? Because the hereafter is spoken about in the Quran in the past tense. That's just how the Quran is. In fact, when you look elsewhere in the Quran, and I'm not going to go through all these now, the moon being split is typical language of just the final hour, which is actually how that verse begins, with a sign of the final hour. And I've given you other references that you could look up there, which talk about the heavens being shaken and other things being split, and all types of things. And so that's all it's saying, is that the hour is drawing near. That's all it's saying. It's the apocalyptic type of language. But I think importantly, those 12 verses that I showed you before, which I'll show you here, they all come chronologically after Surah 54. Now, Surah 54 is where it talks about the final hour and the moon being split, okay? And what's interesting is that all of those verses I read you before come after Surah 54. So if you look up there, Surah 54 is ordered 38th in the order of the surahs. And all of those other references that I gave you before came after Surah 54. So it would be very unusual to have a verse saying that Muhammad split the moon, and then to have 12 verses after that saying Muhammad doesn't do any public miracles, right? It just doesn't work. It just simply doesn't work. And so Surah 54 is not saying that Muhammad split the moon. Now, what's also interesting is that when you go and read the earliest biographies of Muhammad's life, so here's Ibn Ishaq's Rasul Allah, and Ibn Sa'd's Sirat, and even Ibn Hisham's, I've got them here, and even At-Tabari's, when he gives his history, right? The splitting of the moon's not in any of the earliest histories of Muhammad's life. Now, I'm happy to be corrected there. Maybe I've missed it when I've read through those books, but I can't find it in any of those books. And so, when we look at the earliest accounts of Muhammad's life, there is no splitting of the moon. And so I want to say Muhammad didn't split the moon according to the history. Now, I want to finish up with my last points just by saying, what are the consequences of Muhammad not doing miracles? What are the consequences? Well, the first is there's no confirmation from God about Muhammad. It's not that God is acting by doing some special miraculous work to, through Muhammad to confirm him. We just don't have this. And this is the problem that the Quran itself raises with people asking this question, saying, you've got to give us some evidence from God for what you're doing. Another consequence is, what should we think about the hadiths? Because when you read the Sahih hadiths, the hadiths with the impeccable chains of narration, we see that they have Muhammad doing all types of public miracles. So again, they talk about him splitting the moon publicly for everyone to see. They have the sun being stopped. He controls the rain. Water flows from his fingers. He makes trees cry, right? So these are all these public things that he's doing. How do we understand that? Because the number one rule of testing a hadith is, does it agree with the Quran? Does it confirm the Quran? Does it contradict the Quran? And these hadiths are directly opposed to the Quran. Okay, they're directly opposed to the Quran. Now, this raises a bigger issue, because Muslims will tell us that the chain of narrations guarantee that the hadiths are true. They guarantee that they're true. But clearly, these hadiths are not true. These hadiths are absolutely contradicting the Quran, going completely against him. Remember, the hadiths are collected and codified hundreds of years after Muhammad. And what we see here is that they've got a completely different message. And so this is one of the consequences. The chains of narration are not trustworthy. This chains of narration system that Muslims have simply does not work, because the most authentic hadiths with the best chains of narration are hadiths that contradict the Quran. Now, I'm not saying that all hadiths are false, right? But I'm just saying that this chain of narration doesn't actually prove anything. Now, to finish up, just to conclude my points, I want to say Muhammad did no miracles according to the Quran. The isnads that Muslims rely upon to do their history are not reliable, and they need to do it some other way. And so Muslims need to rethink history and what they say to people about Muhammad. I will finish up there. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Samuel. 1 minute, Nadir. I will just get us ready. In fact, why don't you share your screen and we'll get that ready for us.
Oh, sure. Let me do that real quick.
And I will set a timer. Also, would you like a 1 minute warning?
No, I got my
do.
time. I think I'm good.
Okay. Just give me 1 second. So again, thank you, Samuel. A reminder to our audience, I'm Womb to Tomb Apologetics, and I'm proud to be the moderator of tonight's debate. Check out my channel if you like discussion of topics like Christianity, Islam, abortion apologetics, politics, and more. Next, we're going to have Nadir Ahmed's 20-minute opening statement as well on why he believes Muhammad performed miracles, followed by 5-minute rebuttals from each opponent, then 10 minutes of open discussion between the two, and a break for audience Q&A. So make sure to submit your questions with a Q:, and then your question. And then after that, we will have 3-minute closing statements. All right, let us bring up Nadir's thing. Are you ready, Nadir?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Take it away.
Okay, well, thank you for that presentation, Samuel. To start off with, we need to understand what Samuel's position is, because simply explaining it is enough to disprove it. What he's saying is that, okay, I admit the Islamic references, which is the Hadith, which is our historical references, they are filled with clear miracles done by the Prophet of Islam, but purge them. Get them all out of your books. So the quick and easy answer to that is no, we're not going to. Your case, well, but they're all fake and unauthentic hadith, which you were stating in the end, that's just not going to work for one simple reason. If I were to ask the Christians here, would you purge all the references, miracle references of Jesus in the Bible? Would you do it? You probably wouldn't do it. And neither, what you're going to find out is Muslims are not going to do it at all. You are going to witness a spectacular fail tonight, because what Sam is doing, he's wasting everybody's time. Muslims are not going to purge the miracle, which you could see right on your screen, by the way, because I'm sharing my screen. We are not going to purge our scriptures of the miracle stories any more than you are going to. So really, the debate is over here. You know, that's kind of a delusion he's selling people. Now, he refuted himself tonight. He said, look, yeah, Jesus didn't do miracles for everybody he asked for, but nobody has ever said Jesus did no signs. Wonderful, Samuel. Well, guess what? That's the same argument I'm going to use against you. Where did anybody say that Muhammad doesn't do any signs? Muhammad, when the Quran answered those people, he never said, oh, wait, Muhammad doesn't do any miracles. That's your false assumption you are imposing upon the text. But I'll challenge you tonight. Maybe, he spoke for 20 minutes. Did anybody hear him, any reference or quotation where God or the prophet himself ever says, I don't do any miracles? No, I don't do miracles. Where is that? It's not there. These are his false assumptions he's imposing upon the text. So the debate's over there. I don't see any reason to go any further, because if what I'm saying is true, and we'll give him another 10 minutes, show us. I mean, that's a basic minimum requirement, which we're going to ask of you, is where it explicitly says Muhammad does no miracles, and it's not there. And you give another 40 minutes, he's not going to produce it. Rather, he's just making assumptions, because that's all Christianity is. Christianity is an interpretation-based religion. There are no facts to support it. Look, what fact did he present to you which explicitly says Muhammad doesn't do any miracles? There are none. Islam is a fact-based religion, and I'm saying that because I want you to hold me to that standard. Is this guy just giving me facts or personal interpretations? And so I'm not saying that to put him down, but I'm saying so you could put that laser-like focus on me. So let's start with the Quran. Oh, actually, let me just start with this one hadith over here, which he wants us to purge. It states over there very clearly on your screen, talking about the Prophet of Islam doing miracles. This person was wounded in battle, and so he puffed his saliva in it. And the text says, "And since then, I have not had any pain till this hour." Okay, so there's more miraculous healings taking place. In the following hadith, another battle took place, and Ali's eye was damaged. And so he applied saliva once again to his eyes and invoked Allah to cure him. He at once got cured as if he had no ailments. We're not going to purge these these texts because that's pretty much what his argument is, which is of course quite absurd. It's a delusion. We're not going to purge these wonderful texts for your false assumptions. So let's go back to the Quran and let's see what type of false assumptions he was making. So when the disbelievers, they asked him for a sign. And so the first misunderstanding which Samuel has is he thinks sign means miracle, miracle means signs. No, not exactly. You're sort of in the ballpark, Sam. And this goes back to his lack of knowledge of Islamic texts. What's a sign in Islam? Yeah, miracles are one of them, sure. But prophecies from the Bible is also a sign. Physical marks on the body is also a sign because he showed that he had literally a mark between his shoulder blades. For the person in the chat, actually, he's a follower of Robert Morey. He talked about that. Special knowledge. People would ask, okay, I'm going to ask a prophet about special knowledge. And so if he knows this, that's something only a prophet would know. And so these are now, I've just given you 4 signs. There could be more, but that's just 4 off the top of my head. So that should help clear up the confusion. So, but like I said, when the answer was given, the Quran didn't say Muhammad doesn't perform any signs. Of course not. That's not the answer. We'll get to the answer in just a second here. So how does this debunk Samuel's argument when he says, oh no, those hadiths which I quoted, those contradict the Quran when the Quran says he doesn't do any signs? Well, he did point out a contradiction. It contradicts your false assumption you're imposing on the text, not the text of the Quran, because the text of the Quran doesn't say Muhammad doesn't do any miracles or signs. Let's go back to those hadith which I was quoting, and let's take a look at this again. Read the context of this miracle. Samuel talked about this miracle, about water flowing from his fingertips. Let's look at this one right over here, the one where he got cured. Samuel, pay attention to the text, for God's sake. This has nothing to do with signs. He's not trying to prove anything to anybody at this point. What is a sign? You know, the sign, as I told you, is proof of verification. You're trying to prove you're a true prophet. That's not the context. He's doing a miracle, not to do a sign, proof of verification, but he's doing the miracle to help people as an act of mercy. So where is this giant contradiction you're talking about? The problem is you don't understand the text here. So it's very important. Now that you know what signs are could be a physical mark on the back. It could be special knowledge. It could be prophecies in the Bible, prophecies in general. Miracles are just one of the signs, and they are not being used as a sign because the people he's doing the miracles to, they're already Muslim. They're already fighting in battle. They needed some help, so the miracle came. So where is that contradiction again? And there's also another very important point which Samuel has missed. There's 2 groups of people there, right? In the Quran, when those people asked him for a sign, the answer was given to them. What was the answer was given? Basically, Muhammad is just a warner. There's two groups of people there. You see, those people are jerks. They're a bunch of losers in the Quran who he was talking to. But the people who Muhammad did the miracles for, they're kind, loving people whose hearts are open to the truth. People who are kind, loving, hearts are open to the truth, they get miracles. Not the mods in the Quran. What is a mod in the Quran? Miracle on the demand. Hey, show us the miracle. Where's your miracle? Huh? Gonna give us a miracle. And like Samuel's put, and I want angels to come down. I mean, it's like they're at the drive-through in McDonald's and ordering off the menu. For those people, notice the Quran didn't say, no, Muhammad doesn't do any miracles. What the Quran said, yeah, he's our job is just to warn people. You see, he's being dismissive of those people. So where's the contradiction again, Samuel? This shows you his lack of understanding. So now let's talk about this discourse in the Quran. Okay. So I'm going to help you understand the Quran a little bit better. Dr. Carl Sagan, he was an astrophysicist. He used to debate with the Christians, and he noticed they would do that. They just make these assumptions. And so he wrote something called a baloney detection kit. In the baloney detection kit, he said, spin more than one interpretation. Don't just run with the first interpretation which suits your agenda. Like, oh, look, Muhammad can't do any miracles, right? So let's help you out with the text here. So the text over here says, why does Allah not speak to us? I'm sorry. Why does Allah not speak to us, or is there come to us a sign? And so the answer was, well, thus they spoke these words before. Their hearts resemble each other. We have shown clear signs to people who are certain in faith. So let me help you on. Let's look at some other alternative assumptions. Well, first of all, you should not be putting assumptions on the text. Let me help you out here. This type of discussion I have with my children. And this is very important. This discourse, you're reading the Quran, this is not some kind of unique discourse. People have this type of discourse every day. These kids are going to be knocking on the door. They want this. They want their cell phones and iPads. I hide them. Hey, can I, when they come home from school, they say, can I have my cell phone, my iPads? And you know what I say to them? I tell them, it is not my job to entertain you. I put a roof over your head. I give you 3 hots and a cot. My job is done. That's kind of the very same type of discourse which you find in the Quran, the same type of answers. I'm not saying I'm not going to give you your iPads and iPhones so you can play your video games. I'm just saying, you see, these kids are smart enough to know that daddy didn't say, I am not going to give your toys. They're smart enough to know that. These are children. They'll come literally 2 hours later. Dad, I cleaned up my room and I did work for mom. Can I get my cell phone? And I'll slide it underneath the door. I never told them they couldn't have their toys, but they know that I have expectations. Okay, so there's some other interpretations here, Samuel, other than the one you're giving us. Let me give you another example. UFC fighters, and even people who are like, boxing champions, when they go to the clubs, there are people who try to fight them. They want to fight. I mean, these are a bunch of losers who just want to fight them. And they will literally go up to them and say, hey, come on, you and I, come on, you want to fight? Huh? And it's very interesting what their response is. They say, I'm just here having a dinner with my family and friends. Aha, yeah, so you don't want to fight me. See, there you go. You ain't nothing. The same kind of discourse is happening, which you read in the Quran. I mean, this is very common. My point is this. That guy will go back to his bar stool in the club and say, there you go, I just punked out the heavyweight champion of the world. You see, how is that discussion similar to what we read in the Quran? Both the Quran and the heavyweight champion of the world, they don't want to waste their time with losers. A bunch of douchebags. I don't want to waste my time with those people. He has nothing to prove. The heavyweight champion of the world has already proved what he has to, and they can just watch the boxing match. I don't have anything to prove in this bar. It's the exact same discourse you read in the Quran. So it all goes back to this point. Nowhere in the Quran or the Hadith where anybody said, I'm not going to do any, I can't do any miracles, and I'm not going to do any miracles. It goes back to the point, signs come in many different forms. All right. So these are all false assumptions. And so it also goes back to this point. What are you doing here, Samuel? What are you doing? Are you wasting people's time? Do you really think that we are going to purge our scriptures of all the miracle argument, all the miracle stories? Neither will Christians do it. It is just as futile as trying to convince Christians to purge their scriptures of miracle stories of Jesus. And actually, there's a story that there are people who did try to do that. Thomas Jefferson wrote a version of the New Testament in which he stripped out all the miracle stories of Jesus. He couldn't tolerate them. So now there's also another point, the last point I'll bring up, and that is the miracles which we read in our scripture. It doesn't stop there. We can see the miracle today. We can see the miracle, the scientific miracles. So why would we rip out stories from our scripture when we can literally see those scientific miracles? Are you just trying to convince yourself here? Let's look at some of those scientific miracles, and I'd like for you to answer this. From the Hadith, the same books that you want us to purge, it states over here, the last hour will not come before wealth becomes abundant and overflowing, so much so that a man takes zakat out of his property and cannot find anyone to accept it. Now listen to what it says here. From him until the land of Arabia reverts to meadows and rivers. Look at that word revert, meaning it used to be meadows and rivers, and it's going to be green again. So there's two prophecies there, two are scientifically correct statements there. Both have been shown to be proven to true by science. Now, please hit pause on your YouTube video because I'm going to go through this very quickly. That way you could get all my references. Here we have from Nature Asia. The scientists have concluded, this is talking about the land of Arabia, that it did used to be green. Listen to what it says. Because hippos cannot survive in a very arid and dry situation, so the environment had to be green for them to survive. So there were surely lots of lakes and rivers across Arabia, and there was plenty of grass with vegetation for these animals to consume. That's just one reference. Let's go to NASA's website. Fields of green spring up in Saudi Arabia, which goes right back to the prophecy which was given there. The word revert, that the land of Arabia will revert back to meadows and rivers. Now you could say maybe somebody told Muhammad Arabia used to be green. Okay, but what about that it will be green again? So do you have an answer for that? You see, if you want us to rip pages out of our scripture, Samuel, you need to answer this, provide good answers for us, which could convince us. Okay, so this is a purge debate. You want us to purge our scriptures. All right, let's take a look at another one. It states over here, but plagues and diseases I'm sorry, let me read from the beginning. This is again from the Hadith. And so why I'm bringing up the scientific hadith is because it says, look, so the hadith is unreliable because of the isnad, but we believe in the hadith not just because of the isnad, but we also believe in the hadith because of the scientific miracles in them. Did you know that? Okay, so it says over here, immorality never appears among people to such an extent that they commit it openly, but plagues and diseases that were never known amongst their predecessors will spread amongst them. Now, it's very interesting here. I mean, there's new diseases. People of the past didn't know that. Now, everybody here should understand the issue of mutation, like with COVID. Now we have as COVID spread to hundreds and millions of people, what happened? That virus mutated, and now we have a new disease. So this is what happens, mutation. Let's look at the science over here. It says, this is talking about a variant of a sexually transmitted disease. It says we have to think about the B117 variant as almost a brand new virus. So here we see two scientifically correct statements, which the Prophet of Islam, actually three scientifically correct statements. Now my time is almost up, but if you say, okay, well, this was all coincidence, well, how many coincidences? Maybe one or two we could pass off as a coincidence, or maybe you could, but once we get up to 3 and 4, then that's not a coincidence. In my next 10 minutes, all I got to do is bring some more scientifically correct statements, and we can then begin to rule out coincidence, and we can see that this is a scientific miracle. And I'll end on this point. When I say, look, the Quran is a scientific miracle, and therefore telling us that Muhammad did miracles, and you want us to rip out those pages from our books, it doesn't make sense because we can see the miracle today. All right. And not only that, but there's also military miracles. Look how Islam spread all across the world from this one man in the desert who was in the minority of one. And then the Roman Empire fell, and the Persian Empire fell. So we can see the miracle of military victories taking place back then. Do you have an answer for that? How was this one man, Muhammad, able to defeat the Roman and the Persian Empire? That's the miracle we can see. Even historians don't have an explanation for that. So you need to answer these questions if you want us to purge our scripture and say, oh, the hadith is not reliable. Well, you have to answer the scientific miracles because that validates it just like it does with the Quran. So I want to end with a final note. Look, your whole case is destroyed if you cannot show an explicit statement in our text showing Muhammad doesn't do miracles, not your assumptions. Go ahead, Sam.
All right. Thank you, Nadir, for that 20-minute opening statement. So, this is your first reminder to hit subscribe and ring the bell for more apologetics. Now we're going to move on to rebuttals. I was told this would be 5 minutes each. Is that everybody's understanding, or is it 10 minutes?
5. Just go 5.
Is that okay with you, Nadir?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yep, that's what we agreed to.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Make sure, everybody, if you have a question for our debaters, you can drop it in the chat, and we'll keep those for later. Now for Samuel, he'll have 5 minutes. You have the floor.
Okay. Thank you for that, Nadir. I will respond to your points now. First of all, you said that you're not going to, and Muslims are not going to reject the hadith as all fake. Now, I never said that. I never said that Muslims are to reject all the hadith. I was just saying the miracle hadiths, and my point was that the chains of narration don't actually prove anything. Now, Muslims already do this. Muslims do not accept all hadith. So if you know, if anyone out there who knows a few Muslims, you'll know that when you're talking about hadiths with them, some will accept some hadiths, some will accept other hadiths. So Muslims are already accepting and rejecting hadiths. Okay, so the idea that, we're not going to reject our hadiths, you do. And each school has their own school of hadiths, and they've got their own ones that they approach. So I just want to say Muslims do reject hadiths all the time, and that's all I'm saying. You said that where does the Quran, and so you're doing this, I want the exact words that Muhammad did no miracles. Well, in the Quran, we obviously have the Meccans who are saying to Muhammad, you do no miracles, right? So there are those exact words, you do no miracles. And the answer that's given 4 times, the most common answer is, why don't I, so they say to him, why don't you do any miracles? And his answer is, I'm just a warner. Now, that is how you say you don't do miracles, right? That's how you say it. You might say, I want it in these exact words. Well, it doesn't use those words. It uses other words, and we should listen to the way the Quran actually speaks. When people say to Muhammad, and I gave all the references, why don't you do miracles? The most common answer was, because I'm just a warner. So that is clearly saying, I'm just a warner. I don't do miracles. I'm just a warner. It's not, you said, I don't want to waste my time with you. It never says that. It says, I'm just a warner. Now, you put down here, you said, what is it? What have I got here? Oh, you referred to Surah 2, verse 118, where it talked about the miracles that were for the believers. And so Muhammad is doing miracles. He's just doing them for the believers. However, the splitting of the moon was a public event, right? That's the first thing. The splitting of the moon was a public event. And Surah 2, verse 118 that you referred to is actually referring to that first category of signs that I referred to, which are God's signs in creation. And so the signs for the believers in the Quran are the signs of creation, that they look at creation and they see God's signs in the rising of the sun and the setting of the sun. They see God's signs in the seasons. And they're the signs that they see that the unbelievers don't see. Okay, so that's what the Quran says there, that yes, there are signs, but these are the signs of Allah, and they're the ones that the unbelievers see. What have I got here? Okay, let's go to these points here. You spoke about the prophecies. How am I going for time? Time's almost up. Prophecies. You spoke about Arabia, having rivers and meadows, and yeah, because of the climate slowly changing over thousands of years, Arabia has been drying out. And if you go back in the past, it used to be part of Africa. So before the Red Sea split open, it was part of Africa, and it had all African animals and stuff there. But over thousands of years, it's split apart. And yes, now you're saying, well, how is it that it can be green today? How can that be possible? Well, it's like in Australia. In Australia, we've got desert, the rain comes and it all goes green really fast. So that's just the nature of deserts. They have plants that have adapted to desert environments. You spoke about a hadith where it says there were plagues and diseases and these were unknown. People have had plagues and been aware of plagues for thousands of years. There's nothing there. You spoke about the miracle of the conquest of the Romans and the Persians. Well, the Mongols came and conquered the Muslims, right? I mean, empires rise, empires fall. They have their time for a whole range of reasons. There's nothing miraculous in that. So I just want to say again that the Quran is absolutely clear that Muhammad did not do miracles, because it simply says he is just a warner, and any hadith that says otherwise is false. Finish there.
Perfect. Thank you, Samuel, for that 5-minute response. Keep those questions coming, but now it's going to be Nadir's turn. He's going to have 5 minutes to respond in return. So, Nadir, you can unmute yourself and take it away.
Mm-hmm. It looks like Samuel is just trying to convince himself. All right, a clear challenge was presented to him. When the response to those people who are challenging him, they're the mods, miracle on demand. Give me a miracle. Give me a miracle. The response was given, not that I cannot do any miracles. What did Samuel come up with? I'm just a warner. Okay, but Sam, I asked you, show me where it explicitly says Muhammad cannot do any miracles. Because, if you don't have that, you're wasting everybody's time. You really are. Because nobody is going to purge their scriptures based on your assumptions of what you think I am just a warner means. Okay, so let's talk about your confusion you're having here. You said that this is about people reject hadith all the time. This is not about people. My argument is not about people accepting or rejecting hadith. Samuel, what I am telling you is somebody who already believes in the hadith, somebody who already accepts the miracle stories which we find in the hadith, they are not going to purge their scriptures because of your personal interpretation of what you think I'm just a warner means. That's a delusion you're having. No Christian is going to purge their scriptures of all the prophecies of Jesus because I got some assumption of what I think this verse means to me, some personal interpretation, which proves what I said in the beginning, that Christianity is not a religion which offers facts. It is an interpretation-based religion. So how am I doing? Am I presenting facts or am I just giving interpretation? There are no facts to support what you said. Now you should just come forward and tell and explain, look, okay, I admit the Quran doesn't say, the answer given to those people was not, I cannot do any miracles or Muhammad cannot do any miracles. You should just come and say that. Make it clear for everybody. And I have given you an alternative, common sense explanation. When the answer was given, I am just a warner, you got to have some common sense there. Remember, when my kids were knocking on the door for their iPads and iPhones, I never said I'm not going to give it to them. I said, it's not my job to entertain you. My job is just to put a roof over your head. The kids understand. Daddy didn't say no. They'll come back in 2 hours and they will knock on the door again. And they've got their room cleaned. They've brushed their teeth. They've done all the things which I want them to do. Why can't you apply that same logic to the Quran when it says, I'm just a warner? So the alternative interpretation, which makes sense, is the Quran doesn't want to waste time with losers. I never said that the Quran explicitly says that. I'm saying that is a common sense interpretation. You see, Sam, the mistake you're making here, and I want to correct you on this. You pointed out a contradiction, but the contradiction is between your assumption of what you think I'm just a warner means and what the text of the hadith is. So when you see that, oh, wait a second, my assumption is contradicting the story, the hadith history of Muhammad doing miracles, get rid of your assumption and find a better one, like the one I'm giving you. There's no contradiction there. And that's common sense. And that's the problem. You don't have common sense when you read the Quran. Okay. So that's a good look for all, like Dr. Carl Sagan said to the Christian, look for alternative interpretations, that he doesn't want to waste time with losers. There's two groups of people there. The one group, which is inside inside the hadith, is different. They're a bunch of losers. The one in the Quran, in the hadith, where you find miracles happening, they're kind, loving people. And that was not done. The miracles are not done as a sign. It's just done to help them out. So where's the contradiction again? You never showed that. So now I don't know what we have left, but we're going to have a discussion. Now I will ask you, where is this big contradiction that you want us all to purge our scriptures with? It's your misunderstanding of the text, and you shouldn't be making any assumptions. You should be charitable with the scriptures. Okay, so how many assumptions did you make on that text? There's two. Your false assumption of the signs, and then there's your false assumption of what you think I am just a warner means. Two false assumptions. And so my question I have for you is the quantity of assumptions you have to make just to get your argument to work. I counted two. That's ridiculous. You shouldn't be making any assumptions. So I think that's my 5 minutes, right?
Yep. Thank you so much, Nadir, for responding. Now we're going to move it into a 10-minute open dialogue between our debaters. And I'll remind everybody to hit the like button. It's free and it helps us out. So why don't we move into our open discussion period?
Okay, thanks. So Sam, I'm going to ask you very quickly, just so you can clear the air. The text of the Quran, the answer given was, Muhammad cannot do miracles. That's not in the Quran. Can you just verify that for everybody?
Absolutely, because you are saying, why doesn't the Quran say what I wanted to say, rather than listening to what it does say? And what it does say is, when people say to Muhammad, why don't you do a miracle? The answer it gives is, I'm just a warner. Now, that is how you say, I don't do a miracle. I'm just a warner. I don't give miracles. I'm just a warner. So that's how the Quran speaks, and we've got to let it speak its own way.
Okay. So we agree the response given to them was not that Muhammad cannot do any miracles. We can agree on that. And I think
no, we don't. No,
okay. It does not explicitly say that, Sam.
Yes, it does. If
I want word for word. If I say to you, I'm just a
warner, then I'm saying I'm not. They say, why don't you do miracles? And then you say, I'm just a warner. Then I'm saying I don't do miracles because I'm just speaking. A warner just speaks.
No,
He
no,
doesn't
you're
do miracles.
misunderstanding. It didn't say, why don't you do any miracles? Again, you don't understand what a sign is. A miracle is one of the many signs. A sign could be a mark on your back. It could be a prophecy in the Bible. It could be a prophecy. It could be some special knowledge. There's many different signs a person can do. So no, it didn't say, why don't you do any miracles? So again, this goes back to the quantity of assumptions you're making here. First, you're making your assumption on what a sign is, and then you're making your assumption on what you think I am just a warner is. So how do you explain two assumptions you're making? You shouldn't be making any.
I am reading the text as it stands. And when someone says, why don't you do miracles? And then your response is to be, I'm just a warner.
Yes.
That is making it clear that I don't do miracles because I just speak. That's the contrast. It's just called the contrast.
Sam.
Look, we've done that. We've done that issue. People are going to have to make up their own mind.
Going back. Okay, the Quran didn't say when they asked him, why don't you do any miracles? That's not what the Quran said. The Quran says, why don't you do a sign for us? This is a mod. They're a miracle on demand. And so you can have your personal interpretation of what you think I am just a warner is. You can have that, Sam, but that's not my interpretation. And what my point to you is, you are just interpreting the text in a way which suits your agenda. Yeah. And you're blind to alternative explanations here.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Okay, let me speak. The verses will say things like, why doesn't he do a sign like the prophets before? It's clearly talking about some miraculous sign, not just a mark on his back or something. And the answer it gives is, I'm just a warner. Look, we've answered that. We should ask other questions now.
Okay. So
my question for you is...
Hold on. One question I have for you is, so you've come up with this interpretation of what you think I am just a warner means, but that assumption you're making contradicts the hadith. So
yes,
when you see that, you should go look for some other explanation, right? That's
the hadith are codified centuries later.
Okay, but wait a second here. You are creating, when you make those assumptions, you are creating this conflict here. So you go and look for some other assumption. In your brain, it should say, oh, wait a second, I can't make that assumption because there's so many miracle hadith here.
I'm not at all, because Muslims do not accept all hadith. You know that. One of the bases they have for accepting the hadith is that it can't contradict the Quran. Now, what I'm saying is that the Quran is clear that when Muhammad is asked to give a miracle, that he gives various answers, none of which are, I can do them, but I'm not going to. It's always, I'm just a warner, look at the scriptures beforehand. And as I said and brought up in my presentation, that this is the view of academics in this area who read the Quran. And it's not just the academics, but it's also the Muslim academics who make the translations of the Quran. And I gave the one which people could go back to from Mir Moazzam Hussein in Pickthall's translation in the introduction. And he writes there, to myriads the world over, the Quran represents the word of God as revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. It is the only miracle he claimed. And it's very clear in his introduction. So there are Muslims who agree with me, and there are academics who agree with me. And I'm saying that's the plain reading of the Quran. And so if a hadith is against that, I don't accept it.
Okay, that's appeal to false authority. Let's get back to the actual text here, okay? Now, the problem...
moment.
Yeah.
I'll just say it's been 5 minutes, so I think, Nadir, you've asked, I think, 2 questions. Samuel, have you had a chance? Just want to make sure we get some even time.
I'll ask one question, and he can go again. So one of the things I brought up was that when we look at the earliest sirah of Muhammad's life, and I gave 3, actually 4 of those. So Ibn Sa'd, Ibn Sa'd, Ibn Hisham, and even Tabari, when they give their histories, that the splitting of the moon is not in it. And so if we look at this like wealth, we've got thousands and thousands of pages of Muhammad's life here. There's no splitting of the moon. It appears in exegetical material hundreds of years after the event. Well, I'm saying that's just a sign that that hadith, not all hadith, but that hadith has been invented.
Okay,
What
well,
would
yeah,
you
let me
say to
respond to
that?
that. I don't care about splitting of the moon. I brought you other hadith, which are clear miracles from the hadith, which cannot be denied. The problem is I showed you there is no contradiction because number one, the Quran didn't say, when they asked him, show us a sign, he didn't say, show us a miracle. That was your first false assumption. And the response wasn't given to them that, no, I can't do any miracles. That was not the response. So you made two assumptions there. The problem is you never showed a contradiction there because the hadith, which I showed you, the miracle was done to them as a way, not as a sign, which is a proof of verification. The miracle was done for them just to help them out as a mercy and a compassion. So where is this contradiction again? Can you show it to me?
Well, the contradiction is the plain reading of the Quran, which when Muhammad is asked to give a sign, and it's in the context of be like Jesus and Moses, he says, I'm just a warner. So that's the contradiction.
Okay, it's contradicting your assumption on that text because I am just a warner means something different to me. Okay, I'll just be very honest with you. You have your own understanding of that. I got my understanding. And so this is a big delulu, which I think you're giving everybody here. You want Muslims who believe in the hadith and all these miracle texts to purge them because you got your personal interpretation of what you think I'm just a warner means. So am I correct?
First of all, okay. It's not my personal interpretation.
Okay.
As I said, it's the academic view.
Okay. No, he didn't say that.
And it's the view
No.
I gave a common translation of the Quran.
Show me a
and
reference.
this is what the translator says at the beginning.
No.
So it's not just my personal view. There are Muslims who accept this view.
No, you're not. Nobody in those books have said that I am just a warner means Muhammad can do no miracles. Okay, and even where is that?
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, hang on. Okay, where is it? Well, let's have a look. Hang on. Let's get my screen up. I'll read it out again. To myriads the world over, the Quran represents the word of God as revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. It is the only miracle he claimed. It was mentioned earlier that the only miracle the Prophet claimed was the Quran. Now, that comes from the introduction to the Holy Quran, transliterated of the pictures.
You're misunderstanding him, Samuel. You're misunderstanding your own reference, but that's okay. Let's get back to the actual hadith. He didn't say that what you're wanting him to say. So we can agree. I mean, if we're looking for those words where Allah or God stated to the answers to them was, no, Muhammad cannot do any miracles. It doesn't explicitly say that, but you think these texts mean that, I think is what you think. I think my
can you plug yourself in very quickly?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Okay, I think it should work now.
We'll just press the pause for a minute.
Yeah. Okay, you guys can still hear me though, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'll try to fix my camera in just a second here. I don't know.
As we're waiting, I'll just say hit subscribe and hit like and submit your questions. We have Q&A coming up very soon.
There you go. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So, but you never showed me why the alternative interpretation I am giving you is wrong. That
yes, I have.
Doesn't want to waste time with a bunch of losers. Why is that a bad interpretation for you?
Because that's not how the verses read. The verses read with a contrast. They say to Muhammad, why do you do no signs? Why do you give no signs like the earlier prophets? And he is told to say, I am just a warner. Mm-hmm. So he's explaining why he gives no signs.
Okay. No.
It's just comprehension.
It's being dismissive of their. Well, if you read the text carefully, what it says is that, look, it's a waste of time with you people. That's what the text says. It's specifically stated, look, I've done miracles in the past for all these other people in the past. Did it work? It didn't work. So for you people, it's a waste of time. And so what we have in the hadith is a complete different group of people who are not mods, miracle on demand. They didn't even expect it. And so it was just given to them to help them out and to get them along. So there's no contradiction there.
It's a waste of time, right? Yeah. So it never uses those exact words.
Those people, it's a waste of time. That's the point of the Quran. Their hearts are hardened.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, but it doesn't use those exact words. This is what you're saying to me. Give the exact words. It doesn't use those exact words.
I'm showing you alternative interpretations which make more sense.
Okay.
Samuel. Your interpretation is not the only one here. You don't have the only show here. Okay, there are other ways you can interpret it, which is not contradictory, and it makes everything in perfect harmony. And that way, if you go with my interpretation, you don't have to tear out any text. You don't have to purge our books of all the miracle statements. See how nice that is?
Yeah. Well, I just think that you're ignoring the plain reading of the Quran, but that's our 10 minutes.
Yeah, your plain reading of the Quran is your
all
interpretation.
Right. So, why don't we move into Q&A? Again, audience, submit your questions if you want to get it answered. We currently have 5, so I'll put these up on the screen for our debaters, and if you want to respond, you can. And if you, if you're not the person it's directed toward, you don't have to respond, but you can if you want to. So, our first one is from Truth Defenders. He says, for Nadir, the ahadith attribute and all manner of supernatural knowledge to Muhammad. Why could he not discern the lamb was poisoned? It was his demise. For context, for people, this is the poisoned lamb that Muhammad ate that killed him. And
it's another one of these wacky, quacky interpretations which certain people impose upon our text. No, Muhammad was not killed by a poisoned lamb. And I'll be very happy to debate that, because remember, Christianity is exactly what you see here. It's just an interpretation-based religion, but Islam is a fact-based religion. So that wacky, quacky interpretation, I'm ready to debate that. Although it's off topic, let's get back to the topic and use some of these brilliant arguments Samuel has given you.
Samuel, if you'd like to respond, there it is.
Look, from reading the hadiths, it seems pretty clear, and the history. So just from all the sources I've got, it talks about Muhammad being poisoned at the battle of, where is it? It's with the Jews in the north. Is it Tobruk or somewhere? I can't remember now. But it's from one of his conquests of the people in the north. And as far as I can read, he gets poisoned there because the man next to him dies. And then in Bukhari, it says that it's from this that he later on dies. I mean, again, as Nadir said, we'd have to get all the references, and I'm not ready for those at the moment.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that the references do say that pretty clearly.
It's off topic. It's another one of those silly arguments where does it say that Muhammad died from eating a poisoned lamb? Where does it explicitly say that? It's not. It's another false assumption of the ignorant, credulous person. Fake. F-A-I-C. Christianity is a fake religion. Islam is a fact religion.
So hang on. Maybe Truth Defender, if you can Google that reference and send it back again.
Sam, it's off topic. Let's stick with a topic
on
miracles.
It's not completely off topic, because you're saying he's got supernatural knowledge, and so he's saying, well, why didn't he have supernatural knowledge of this? So it's on. It's exactly.
Well, why don't you do this for me?
Truth Defender saying it is on topic.
Show me where Truth Defender can show us where it said Muhammad died from eating the poisoned lamb. Where is that? Or is this another one of your interpretation games, just like you did on I Am Just a Warner type interpretation stuff? And this is my point. You don't have facts to support what you guys believe. Everything is just some personal interpretation, like Dr. Carl Sagan said. And you don't have facts to support what you're saying.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. For now, we have Power of One. He says, what is the time period the hadith gives between the time Muhammad is asked to perform a miracle and when he gives his reply that he's just a clear warner? So what's the time period between those two statements, basically?
So what is the time period between the hadith gives between the time?
Yeah. So, what's the time?
Okay. I mean, I can answer that. I mean, this is something that we can both contribute to. I've certainly, I've been reading my way through this. It's a bit of a brick, so it takes a while to read Ibn Ishaq's Rasul Allah, and it often quotes the verses that I gave, and it will just say, they had this discussion, and then Muhammad spoke these words. It was revealed, and he spoke these words. It didn't give, the number of days until he said it. Obviously, it's within a time frame so that it makes sense to the people who are hearing it. Yeah.
Well, I think the real question, there is, based on your personal interpretation of what you think I am just a warner means, do you really think you've provided sufficient evidence for Muslims to start purging their scriptures of all the miracle stories, Samuel? Is that really your expectation here?
Yes, I'm saying that the Quran is clear that when Muhammad was asked why he does no miracles, which comes up over 10 times, people saying, why does he do no miracles like Moses and Jesus? Why? And the answers he gives are not, well, I do them, but you don't see them.
So
the answers are, well, I'm just a warner. And so I'm saying that, I'm saying that the hadith, the number one rule of a hadith is it can't contradict the Quran. And you do that for other hadiths. So why not these ones?
wait a second. So you cannot see that you're just giving your own interpretation on that? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not giving my interpretation.
Okay, so you can't see that.
Interpretation of academics and of other Muslims as well.
Okay, so you're saying other people interpreted it that way and you're just borrowing from them, right? Is that what you're doing?
No, I haven't said that. I've said that I've read the Quran, I've given all my evidence, and I'm saying that what it says is clear.
I am just a warner, and it is not a no or yes to that question. I mean, it's like you got your own assumption of what you think it means, and you cannot see that what you are saying, what you're thinking is not explicitly written in the text. That's pretty worrisome, Samuel.
Okay.
Because everybody else can see that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I disagree. Now, I found the hadith about Muhammad eating the poison. How do I get that to you, womb to tomb?
You can just read it, or if you want, you can. It's Sahih Bukhari 3,786 apparently.
Yeah. So what I've got here is narrated by Aisha, the Prophet in his ailment in which he died used to say, "O Aisha, I still feel the pain caused by the food I ate at Khyber, and at this time I feel as if my aorta is being cut from that poison." And so that's Sahih Bukhari number 4428, or volume 5, book 59, number 713. So it's very clear that, the food he ate at Khyber that he died from, like it makes it clear, so there are those references that he died from that poisoning.
Okay. Can I say something on that?
If you want to, yeah.
Yeah. So the quantity of foolish assumptions being made here. Okay, let's count how many silly assumptions are made here. First of all, he's talking about something which happened a couple of years ago, and if your aorta is cut, you're dead. You're not going to be living 2 years later and talking about it. Wow, it feels like that thing. Remember when I ate back then? What the heck is going on here? That is as nutty as what we've heard tonight. That 2 years later, you're talking about, and he didn't say, I'm dying from this. He says, yeah, I kind of feel like it is.
No, it actually says that. From which he died. Which he died.
Okay, wait a second. Where does it say that? Where does it say that poison actually killed him? Where does it explicitly say that, Samuel? Or is that another one of your, it's clearly in the text and all you're doing is interpreting it. Let's go to 3:7.
Okay, I will read it again.
3:7.
The Prophet in his ailment in which he died used to say, "O Aisha, I still feel the pain caused by the food I ate at Khyber." That's it. I mean, I don't know what else I can say.
It didn't say it killed him. Okay, that's my point. You're once again, and this goes back to what Christianity is. It's just one fake argument after the other. False assumption of the ignorant, credulous person. Islam is a fact-based religion. No hadith. There's no reference which says that Muhammad died from poison. It's what you're doing with this hadith is what you've been doing all night, just making assumptions, one assumption after the other. Okay, let's move on. Oh my God. How many more of these assumptions are we going to hear here? All right, go ahead. What's the next question?
All right. Our next question is for Nadir. What was Muhammad's first miracle, and when did he perform it?
Well, you know what? Samuel's saying there are no miracles. So thank you, truth defenders, for at least accepting my argument tonight that, look, unless it explicitly says these things, then you should not believe it. You should just be more charitable with the scriptures. This is called the principle of charity. But in terms of what his first miracle was, I can't say, my memory escapes me. But the question of tonight is, did he perform miracles? Yes, he did. He did many miracle healings, water coming from his fingertips. And but I don't know which one is the first one.
Samuel, if you have anything.
No, sorry, hang on. Let's just go back to here. I'm just trying to get that reference for us.
All right.
Okay.
So we have here. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay, no, I just saw that next question. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, is that what you want?
Yeah. Well, let's just keep going our way through. We don't do, we'll just do the questions quickly, and then.
When does the Quran state the moon was split by Muhammad?
I don't know. I don't have time. I don't have like time frames. I don't know. But the issue here about the splitting of the moon is a little bit irrelevant, because we have other clear miracle statements, which I have shared with you in terms of, he was healing the people who had an eye injury, water coming from his fingertips. So I relied on those, because the most important point about those hadith, which refuted Samuel, was it was not done as a sign. The moon splitting was done as kind of a way to warn them. But the miracles which I showed you were done as a way to be kind, courteous, show compassion to them, and it was not doing as a sign. Therefore, there's no contradiction, and that's what Samuel could not answer once you look at the context of these miracle statements I produced for you.
Yeah, and again, I just want to say that you are not reading the Quran at that point. The Quran has, on multiple occasions, people say to Muhammad, "Why do you do no signs like Jesus and Muhammad? We want some sign." And his answer is, "I'm just a warner."
It's not a sign.
If you go from that to saying, "Oh, he just does them for the believers," well, I showed you that in the Quran, when it talks about the signs given for the believers, it's talking about the signs of creation, the rising of the sun, the seasons, and it says they're the signs for the believers. It never gives the signs that you're saying. And the reason why the splitting of the moon is important is that, one, it's the miracle that Muslims give us, right? So Muslims give us the sign of the splitting of the moon. And what I've shown is that when you read the Quran, it doesn't say Muhammad did it. It says if it happened. And when we read the earliest accounts of his life, it doesn't exist. And so there's clear evidence here that this Sahih hadith with an impeccable chain is false. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying all hadith are false, but I'm saying we shouldn't accept hadith which contradict the Quran.
Okay, but Sam, you're misunderstanding me. I've been explaining to you all night the hadith, which I quoted, is not done as a sign. It's just done as a kind gesture. So there's no, even if you were to go along with your interpretation, there still is no problem. I mean, do you understand that?
Well, no, because that's not what... That's not how those hadiths are used. They are used as signs of Muhammad.
No, it's not. Please read.
Yes, they are.
Can I share it for you again? Can I share you? It's not done as any sign here. Is it just my screen, or you're turning a little bit purple? Maybe it's okay. I don't know what. It kind of remind me of Grimace. I don't know. Do you guys have Grimace in Australia? That's from McDonald's. But anyways, let me show you the hadith to show you that the hadith, the miracle, was not done as any kind of sign. It was just done as a kind gesture. The guy was suffering, so he thought, okay,
it's the same thing. I mean,
no, it's not a sign. It's a proof of verification that you're a prophet. That's what the sign is in the Quran, right?
Yeah. People do all types of kind gestures. They help people in a whole range of ways. They're not written up. The reason that one was written up is because it's being viewed as a sign. If it was just Muhammad helping someone up on a camel, that hasn't been written up, right?
Sam, do you know what
this one's been written up because they're claiming that this is a miraculous thing he did. And I'm saying that's against the Quran.
Okay, a sign is a proof of verification that you are a true prophet. That's what a sign it was in the Quran. Okay, but what I'm sharing for you, Sam, has nothing to do with that. It's just a kind gesture, and I think you don't have an answer for that. So let's just move on.
Yeah, move on.
All right. Does the Quran identify any miracles as simply a warning? I don't know if we've covered that, but maybe it's something
there
different.
is.
Yep.
Farid responds, actually, I saw a discussion with him and Samuel, and he brought up a very good verse in the Quran where Allah did miracles by sending a wind to basically give victory in battle. And that's found inside the Quran, and I don't have the verse in front of me, but it's yeah. And
that's
so,
not the warning one. He's asking a different question there.
okay.
So I know what you're saying, but the question he's asking is, are signs sent as a warning? I'm just finding it for you now.
I would say the splitting of the moon is a warning for those people.
Where are we? I read it there. It was one of the ones that I read. You know how it is when you got to go back through 12 to find it. I'm pretty sure it was in one of the ones that I sent. Oh no, here it is. So yes. So whoever asked that, Surah 17, verse 59 reads, "And nothing has prevented us from sending signs, except that the former peoples denied them." Now notice, nothing has prevented us. So we could have given them, but we haven't. We gave Thamud the she-camel as a visible sign, but they wronged her. And we send not the signs except as a warning. So there is a verse that says that, and that's Surah 17, verse 59.
All right. We are coming near the end.
Okay, we'll get ready for our...
If Muhammad did split the moon, why wasn't it included as a miracle of Muhammad in the Quran like Jesus's miracles are included in the Quran?
Well, the splitting of the moon, that reference actually is referred to in the Quran. And but to get more detail about it, you go to the Hadith, which further explains it. And but the problem is Samuel wants to purge all those Hadiths based on his personal interpretations.
Okay, right. Well, we'll move on to our concluding statements.
We have one more question, and then we'll finish up. For Nadir, how do you determine which hadiths and or tafsirs you accept? You are rejecting Sahih hadiths and respected tafsir narrations.
No, I'm not. I'm saying let's accept the hadith, which is like the history of Islam. It is Samuel is the one you need to point that criticism to. He is the one here tonight telling you to reject all the Sahih Hadith of Muhammad's miracles. So this guy, Truth Defender, is just barbecuing you, Samuel. First, he accepts that there's miracles in his last question, and he's telling it, why are you guys rejecting it? It's him who's doing it, not me. I'm saying keep the Hadith. Keep them, okay?
I don't think that's his question.
To purge.
Yeah, I don't think that's his question. His question is, on what basis do you accept a hadith as authentic?
Well, we just follow the scholars. We follow what the scholars tell us, but at the same time, if something is a scientific miracle, that adds weight to its authenticity. And I tell you what, Christians, they do not want to debate this topic of Quran and scientific miracles because they can see the miracles in it. Samuel, if you'd like to debate me on that, I would be more than happy to do that. Okay, Womb will do that. And I'm going to give you all my arguments also. I'm going to give you my past debates so you can get prepared, see what I'm going to be saying. Okay. And that was going to be super easy debate for you. Because that's the core of what, Islam presents real facts, real scientific evidence to establish what it is. And Samuel will have an opportunity to refute it.
Okay. All right. We'll move on.
Yep, we'll move on to our closing statements. Now, Samuel, if you have any visual aids, you can pop those up.
Yeah, so I'll just pop this up and then get back to
this is your final reminder to like and subscribe. It's time for our dazzling finale. Closing statements begin now. starting with Reverend Green for 3 minutes.
Well, thank you everyone for watching this video today. I hope you found it helpful on a very important topic, because it's helpful. It's helpful because we need to know the truth about Muhammad, not things that have developed in later legends, and Muslims need to present the truth about Muhammad. My case has been that the Quran is clear, and that when Muhammad was asked as to why he did no miracles, that time and time again it says, "I am just a warner. I'm just a warner." And we've looked at this reference, so let me get this up here. So again, I've got Muslims who say this as well. To myriads the world over, the Quran represents the word of God as revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. It is the only miracle he claimed. It was mentioned earlier that the only miracle the Prophet claimed was the Quran. And so that is a view held by Muslims and by academics in this area, that's what the Quran says. So it's not just my opinion. I looked at the alternatives that Muslims give, that referring to the creation, the signs of God in creation, that we can't apply those to Muhammad. The sun rising and the sun setting can't be applied to Muhammad. We looked at the idea of magic and how Muhammad was a magician because he was doing magic acts, and they're interpreted as magic acts. But no, when we read those verses, he's spoken of as a magician because of the words he was speaking, and the examples I gave with the magic letters at the start of certain surahs, Aleph, Lam, Mim, which they're a mystery. That's magic, is meaningless letters. We looked at the splitting of the moon and saw that there's no basis for that in the Quran or in the early surahs of his life. And so there is simply no evidence that Muhammad did miracles, right, according to the Quran. I then said that, well, when the hadith is saying that he is, that those hadith, according to the standards of accepting and rejecting hadith, should be rejected because they contradict the Quran in such a blatant way. And even though they've got perfect chains of narration, that doesn't mean anything. The chains of narration don't prove anything because they are so clearly against the Quran, and they're speaking from a later time dealing with different issues. And so I just want to say Muhammad did no miracles. There is no confirmation from God that Muhammad was a true prophet. These stories come later, and if we just let the Quran read itself, we can see that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Samuel, for your closing statements. We're going to turn it over to Nadir now for his closing 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Well, thank you for that, Samuel, for all those personal interpretations. They were quite interesting. So I think what the main, the most important part of tonight's debate is, nowhere does the Quran explicitly state, or hadith, Muhammad can do no miracles. Muhammad doesn't do any miracles. It doesn't explicitly state that. Rather, what it states is that I'm just a warner, and the further explanation is, look, I've done these things in the past for people in the past. It didn't work. There are people whose hearts are hardened. That's what the Quran stated very quickly. So Samuel's personal interpretation is, it means you can't do any miracle, and he wants to shove his interpretations down our throats of what he thinks that means. And I'm trying to get him to see tonight what you are thinking the Quran says. It doesn't explicitly say that. You're assuming these things. He had no explanation for why you're coming up with assumptions that you see flatly contradicts the hadith, which is a history and biography of Muhammad, in which he does clear miracles. He had no explanation why he's coming up with these type of assumptions. Well, first of all, you should never be making assumptions on the text. Okay? You shouldn't be doing that. You should be charitable. I gave him alternative assumptions, which is, you people are a waste of time, and I don't want to waste my time with a bunch of losers. The people who were in the Quran, they were mods, miracle on demand type people. Give us a miracle. Hey, give me a miracle. Okay, you know what? I'm just a warner. I've tried these things in the past and didn't really work out, did it? I mean, that is pretty much what the Quran is saying. I've given him alternative interpretations, which make so much more sense. And guess what? They don't contradict the hadith. but he just threw them aside because it doesn't suit his agenda tonight. He's trying to sell us a delusion. He's trying to convince Muslims who already believe in hadith and who believe in the miracles stories to purge our scriptures of these stories. It's just as big of a delusion as trying to convince Christians to purge their scriptures based on my assumptions. Okay, I'm interpreting it like this. This is what it means to me. Christians are not going to do it, and Muslims are not going to do it. So I look forward to a wonderful debate on the scientific miracles of the Holy Quran, which I believe we're going to do next, because the other Christian apologists, they're scared to debate this topic because they see a lot of truth in the scientific miracles and they see that they cannot refute it. So that's why they duck this debate. But Sam, thank God he has come forward to have this wonderful debate. And I thank him once again for participating in this debate. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you so much, Nadir. That concludes our debate. Thanks to both of our debaters, and I'll remind everyone that everyone's channels are linked in the description. Come check us all out and subscribe. Each of theirs focus on Islam. Mine, of course, focuses on Christianity versus Islam, Christianity versus atheism, and more, along with pro-life apologetics and other topics. God bless everyone, and thanks for showing up.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.